Hello everybody and welcome to the Rocket Recap. My name is Bass from the Past and this is the show that will recap everything that has gone on in the pro and bubble scene in North America, EU, sometimes South America and OCE, but we will have to find out. We're going to go through this today in 4 different categories, as you guys can see here, starting with the low tier, which is going to be D tier, C tier, and anything around that region. High tier from B and above, B, A, and S, trades and transfers, and then discussion. If you guys have any suggestions for other sections that you might like, please let me know down below. Alright, and without further ado, though, we're going to get into our very first section of the day, and that is going to be our low-tier events. Our low-tier events this week are probably one of the most hectic, I would say, out of everything. There's a lot of stuff going down in around the C-tier list, but we're going to start off with the D-tier first before anything. The first thing we're going to start off with is the Team Frontline Defenders Cup. This was a $300 tournament brought to you by Team Frontline. It's a charity event, so again, huge shout-out to Team Frontline for the entire thing. Just kind of wanted to mention them as a shout-out because there's someone that I cast or someone that I'm a huge fan of. They do a $1,000 draft tournament, or excuse me, not tournament, draft league every couple of months, and they really do deserve all the support in the world. So if you guys aren't aware of Team Frontline, please go check them out. The team that took first place in that event is Future Samba, Adverse, and Alpha, and you guys are going to want to remember some of those names. Specifically, remember Adverse because he's going to come up a little bit more in the future in this episode. Second place was Integrity Esports. Third place was Pride Stark, and the bottom 2 teams there you guys might be a little bit more familiar with because they are pretty well established teams in the bubble scene, and it's not necessarily surprising though to see all 3 of those teams in the top 3 there. Moving on to C tier, we've got the Gaming Stadium Norquest Esports Series 2. It was a $2,000 Canadian tournament, about $1,600 USD, and it had some pretty significant teams playing some really good competition. First place went to Team EXE. Instead of using Tito, though, they did have Snow or Tito. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce the name. I do apologize, brother, despite the fact that, oh boy, I've casted you in far too many events to still be messing up your name, but that's not here nor there. Second place went to the Randoms, Daniel, Eris, and Astro, and I mentioned that team very specifically because of the fact that the Randoms have been a team that have popped up in the bubble scene in North America for a little while now. They've been doing a lot of different events. They've taken some really good wins here and there. They took a win in the Game Time circuit for spring, which is one that I actually had the pleasure of hosting, and they were very impressive to watch there. Got second place in the Astro tournaments, where it was a $10,000 basically weekly qualifiers, if I'm not mistaken, but it was a bunch of qualifiers that led up into a giant event where they got second place. I'm not sure who they got second place to. I'd have to go back in my memory, but again, another team you're really going to want to watch out for. And then third place in this Gaming Stadium event was Empire Esports, another organization that's been around the bubble scene for quite some time. So congratulations to the 3 of them for splitting that $1,600 prize pool, and again, congratulations to Team EXE, most specifically on taking number 1, because you guys might be sensing a trend at this point. They're another team you're going to want to watch. The guys who pop up here at the very top level, well, they pop up a lot, so make sure to pay attention to these guys. And the last C tier event we're going to be mentioning is a pretty big one, and this is one that I really do want to try and I'd say emphasize just a little bit more, because boy, oh boy, is this a cool event, and it's something that I think a lot of people should be at least a little bit more aware of. The third event that we're going to be speaking about here today is the Space Station Airlock 1v1. Space Station Gaming put on a $2,500 Airlock 1v1 tournament, and it was absolutely incredible to watch. Daniel took home first place, second place was to Lion Blaze, third place was to Chronic, and fourth place went to Adverse. And I wanted to mention Adverse specifically because, as you guys have seen, we haven't mentioned a single fourth place winner so far. Reason I wanted to mention Adverse is it's another player in the bubble scene that's been coming up really quickly in a ton of different events, including CRL, where they really got a name for themselves. And while Daniel, Lion Blaze, and Chronic are 3 names that you guys might have heard before, I wanted to give at least a little bit of a spotlight to Adverse because he truly deserves it. He's a very good player, and I think that the world should be paying a little bit more attention to him. But I don't want to spend too much time paying attention to Adverse here. You guys are also going to want to check out one of these clips that Chronic hit during this event. Absolutely insane event, as I said. And, well, this save from Chronic is absolutely otherworldly. Check this clip out.
And now Lion Blaze has the possession in the backfield. 40 seconds left. Got the dribble in another.
Whoa!
Unreal flick and an unreal save followed up here from Chronic. Chronic on the sideline.
Yeah, just unreal. There's not much else to say about that one. Chronic is absolutely insane when it comes to 1v1s, and the fact of the matter was that he got third place in this event. So if you can get third place and you have to play that well, my oh my, do 1v1s need a bigger spotlight. So again, huge shout out to Space Station Gaming. Shout out to Johnny Boy as well, because as you can hear in the commentary, one of the casters on that entire event. We're going to move on, though. There's plenty of other action to cover here, and so let's move in to the high tier events. High tier events this week, a little bit farther and few, and that really shouldn't be a surprise if you guys have been keeping up with what's going going on. A tier events and S tier events are almost exclusively Rocket League central, as in RLCS. It's based around what Psyonix is doing with the Rocket League Pro scene, so it's going to be a little bit less heavily contested, I would say, at this point. It's really the best way to put it, or probably actually not even the best way to put it. But nonetheless, we're going to move on to the B tier events, to these high tier events. I'm going to start off with the RLQC, Rocket League Quebec $2,500 tournament. They did a tournament for their 6-man groups, and I got to say, huge shout out to them, because I think that the Canadian scene needs a lot more attention, and that teams who are doing this sort of stuff and putting on events for Canadian only players is awesome to see. So a huge shout out to them. And a huge shout out to the team that took this entire thing home. You guys might remember this name. Shout out to Mirage. Mirage took the first place here, and they did it over some, I'd say, some pretty impressive teams. Second place was a team named Wash. It was a pickup team comprised of Jordan, Creams, and Tito. Remember Tito from earlier? That's the player on Team EXE who is a Canadian player, very, very strong. Creams is, I believe, a Welsh player living in Canada, so he gets to compete in something like this. And Jordan is a Canadian player. But Jordan and Creams, a little bit more interesting of a duo. Jordan is a main player for Alpine, and Creams is the substitute for that team, which, in my opinion, honestly should just be the first, or should be the third man. Creams is freaking cracked. But that's not the point here or there. But that's a huge squad to take it down. It's a lot of really, really good experience. Tito, a very, very strong player in itself and has RLCS experience, as Team EXE did make it into an RLCS event during the last split. And then obviously Jordan and Creams on a very strong squad as well. And that's not even, I mean, it is one of the stronger squads there, but we also have to give a shout out to the St. Clair Saints, which is Comp, Spoods, and Fusion. If you guys don't know those three players, you really should. Again, really strong players in the Bolo and Pro scene that have done a ton of really good stuff over the last couple of months, and the fact that Mirage took all of these guys down are absolutely insane. I really do want to give a shout out to Mirage, but that's not right now. We'll talk about them a little bit later on in the show. For now, let's move on to the TCS Esports League. And league play is over there. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to those guys, because they actually do have some more events coming up. TCS Esports League play has finished. That was for 6,000 Swedish francs, which is about 4,000 Swedish francs, which is about 4,500 USD. And now they move into the playoffs, where they're going to have the chance to compete for another 6,000 Swedish francs, which is going to be almost 7,000 USD. So $4,000 already getting spread to the top 4 teams here that make it in the playoffs, and then we got another 6,000 going to them. So my, oh my. Congratulations to first place going to the Coconutters, second place going to Edelweiss Esports, third to Slightly Salty, and fourth to Sparks Esports. Congratulations to those 4 teams. You guys are going to have a huge prize pool to play for, and I wish you the best of luck. And this is another really good time for me to mention, hey, like I said, this one's not done yet. If you guys want to go check this out, all the links for everything we've done here today will be in the description below, whether that is VODs you want to go watch back. I'll link those channels, or it's channels that have stuff upcoming that you might want to watch. This TCS, perfect place to go do so. Definitely go check them out. Before we move on to end and wrap up sort of this high tier event list, I want to mention one other event, the Super League 10K. And if you want to skip this part, I totally get it, because this is going to be a little bit of me ranting and sort of just giving my opinions on this event in general, where I know we're not at the discussion section yet, but I do feel I have to mention something about this one, because you guys are going to hear this for $10,000. I have a feeling a lot of you are scratching your heads and going, there was a $10,000 tournament that I didn't hear of. You're correct, and you want to know why? It's because the teams that were invited, in my opinion, were not necessarily the typical caliber of teams you would see in a $10,000 tournament. It was Team EXE who took first place. Congratulations to Team EXE. It took $5,000 home just for that team alone. Second place went to Allmid. Third place to Parabellum, or I think I have this backwards. Yeah, third place to Parabellum, and fourth place goes to Veracity. And again, I don't have any ill will against any of those 4 teams. They're all very, very strong teams. EXE might be the one here that I can kind of understand them getting an invite to a $10,000 tournament, but for $10,000, the truth of the matter is that the Rocket League scene has been begging for an event like this for a very long time. The last thing we had was the Astro Star Circuit, as I had mentioned previously, but that was a little bit different. It was qualifiers on qualifiers on qualifiers for any team to be able to play and get their shot at a $10,000 prize pool, and the community absolutely loved it. Super League Arena, their 10K, was invite only. I'm not sure if it was sponsored by Psyonix, because from what I had seen in the chat and from the rules of the event, they were not allowed any of teams over the 20th marker in North America. So it sounds like they were exclusively having teams underneath a certain threshold of skill. And in my opinion, this event was an absolute utter chaotic disaster. I think that for $10,000, there's a lot better teams that you can bring into this event. It is nothing to throw shade against the teams that are there or the players that are there, but I think the Rocket League scene has been craving a $10,000 tournament like this for a very long time. They have been begging for this, and teams like Charlotte Phoenix, Alpine, even version 1 to a degree, Susquehanna Sonics, RBG for sure, KCP, teams like that would play in an event like this, and they'd have a much bigger following, a much bigger background, and it'd be a much better representation of the higher caliber of skill in Rocket League at this moment. To make an invitation only 10K and then bring in teams that had not even made RLCS all except for one squad, and also bring in teams that had disbanded, such as Parabellum and Radiant, it really doesn't make a lot of sense. I feel like this was an event that was very poorly organized and could have been a lot better, and for $10,000, you could have gotten some of the best competition in North America. All right, but I'm not going to take any more of your time. I could really sit here and talk about this all day, but that's not really the point. Let's just move on to the trades and transfer section, and there's not really a lot to talk about in the trade and transfer section this week. This was a pretty relatively quiet week in terms of everything going on, with a couple of, I'd say, really large roster moves that kind of highlight everything, and the two that I'm going to talk about are going to be Alpha Kep stepping down and coming off of the XSET team, and then Galaxy Racer releasing their entire roster. Two of them very different implications, so we'll start off with the Alpha Kep thing. Alpha Kep got dropped from the XSET roster, and in my opinion, it is one of the weirdest moves that you could have seen out of XSET right now. I think XSET are riding really high unless Alpha Kep left on his own accord, which, according to their Twitch and their Twitter, I'm not exactly sure if that's true, but if it is, it kind of makes a little bit of sense. XSET had seen a lot of really good success as of late. Alpha Kep was one of the main highlights of that team, so he might be trying to go on to bigger and better things with bigger teams. I don't know if it's the wise decision, because I think that XSET, part of the reason they were such a strong squad and starting to find success with the fact that they stuck together for so incredibly long and finally started to find that good flow. To leave that good flow as soon as it starts to pick up, it makes me sit here and scratch my head. There's really not much else to say. I'm a little bit confused by the decision. I don't quite understand the roster move, but hey, you know what? To each their own. I'm not going to be critical of him, because it could be something in the future that could be huge, but it also does have other implications besides just Alpha Kep himself. Another one of the biggest moves that we've seen in the last couple months has been Percy leaving Alpine. Percy was Alpine's third, one of the strongest players on that team. I think Percy really did not get enough credit for the work that he did on Alpine. And when he left, pretty much everyone had the same question, which was, where on earth could we see Percy going? Now that XSET has an open spot, XSET has been on the rise, I'm thinking this could be the spot. I don't want to guarantee it, and I don't think that that's really enough evidence to say that this is definitely going in favor of Percy moving on to XSET, because Alpine and XSET, in my opinion, are pretty much hand in hand in terms of skill at this point. XSET just ended up having a little bit better of a split. Meanwhile, Alpine did not necessarily have the split that they wanted, but I'm hoping that's not necessarily the reason that we're seeing all these the departures from both of these teams. It's just teams that either had, Percy with a team that didn't really have the split that they wanted, XSET having a really good split in Alpha, thinking that he could do better. In my opinion, and I think I've stated this a lot behind the scenes, if you've ever talked to me behind the scenes or worked with me behind the scenes, you've heard me probably speak about this on, I'd say, numerous occasions at this point, but I think that teams need to stick together longer in Rocket League. The truth of the matter is I think it is hurting the sport greatly to have so many volatile teams that are not willing to stick around and try and just improve as a squad. There is almost, in my opinion, no sport where you can have this volatile of people moving from roster to roster and find success within it. I think it's a foolish idea to have teams switch this much up. You need to find that good cohesion, that good flow. The most successful teams in Rocket League are the teams that stick it out and get better. Go look at Team BDS in Europe. They were not necessarily nobodies, but they were not the degree that they were until this split, or not, excuse me, until the split, until this season started up. And once they did find their flow, they ran with it. But that is due to sustained practice, just continually staying as a group and getting better and better and better. So again, I really do think that sticking together as a squad is going to be absolutely crucial for a lot of these teams coming up. So the Alpha Kep and the Percy moves have got me a little bit confused and also a bit curious. But without taking too much more time on just that subject, I do want to go over to Galaxy Racer. Galaxy Racer dropped their entire roster. Arju, Matane, and Bluey are now looking for another org, and this throws rumors everywhere of people thinking, okay, did Galaxy Racer either decide, hey, we are done with this squad, we don't think that this is what we're looking for, and we want to move on to a new group, or is this one of these things where the Galaxy Racer crew that is at hand ended up getting a better offer from someone else? I'm thinking it's the first one. I think the Galaxy Racer was expecting sort of the highest tier of play out of their roster and didn't really want to accept anything else, and this is sort of just what we ended up getting, and it's a shame to see, because I think that, again, I'm a big fan of roster sticking together and toughing it out. out through the highs and lows, but it is what it is. So I wish the best to former Galaxy Racer, Arju, Matane, and Bluey, and to Galaxy Racer, the organization itself. They say that they want another return to Rocket League very soon. They say they do not plan to depart, so I'm going to keep my eyes on you guys. I want to see what type of teams you are willing to bring through here and sign up on your roster, but we're going to have to find out. That is the end of the trades and transfers section. We're going to move on to discussion. And the discussion this week is really just going to be sort of me highlighting the teams that I think you guys have got to pay attention to. There's not a lot of teams that I think are really sort of sweeping the scene as brutally as the 3 teams we had mentioned previously here today. Mirage, Team EXE, and the Randoms are the 3 biggest bubble teams in Rocket League right now. Fight me if you disagree. But seriously, they are some of the best teams in Rocket League right now. They have been taking win after win after win after win in different events. If you were looking at a bubble scene event, there's a pretty good chance that one of the 3 of them is at minimum in the top 3. And the biggest team, in my opinion, out of these 3 that are popping up is Mirage. Team EXE had been a good team for quite some time. As I had mentioned, Tito even itself had been a very strong team, player who had been around the scene for quite some time. All of Team EXE had been around the scene for quite some time. But Mirage's squad is not the same Mirage squad when they made RLCS. It's not even close to it. At this point, it's a completely different team altogether. Right now, we have currently got Nibra, Tekos, and Vegas. Previously, instead of Tekos, it was Linear, and that was back when they had first started to find the success when they won the field. Yes, North America in the field, the Rival Series event that Psyonix sponsored, they had a grand finale, and Mirage won that entire thing. Since then, they have been on an absolute tear, taking out tons of competition at every single level, including the teams that you heard me talk about this week. They even took a B-tier event home. Like I said, that $2,500 prize pool, they took a majority of that home, taking down some really, really impressive competition along the way, and I think people need to pay attention to them more. I think they're a team that is really on the rise. I think that all 3 of those guys went from players that were pretty solid. I had seen specifically Nibra many months back in 1v1 competition and started taking note of this kid, and to see them now really find their full flow, to see what they are, it's incredibly impressive. Basically, what I mean to say here is that Mirage are one of the best teams coming out of North America right now. They have taught a ton of upside. They're doing better and better and better as time goes on, and it's because of the fact that they just have really solid players all around. If you want an example of that, go check out this clip from that Canadian tournament we had just spoken about. Nibra is absolutely cracked, and this proves exactly why.
Qu'on avait un tir de plein fouet de Creams et Vegas qui avait bien replacé, qui avait bien repris sa position défensive après être sorti. Nibra cherche le reset, va le trouver! Et quel but de Nibra pour donner un avantage de 2 à Mirage!
Et de sa propre zone, regardez la diffusion, regardez la reprise ici, Solotech nous la présente, c'est...
Yeah, Nibra's just incredible. There's not much else to say. Mirage have been taking wins like that, stunting on teams like that on repeat throughout their last couple of months. They've had some incredibly impressive runs. And again, this is a team that I've had a chance to watch firsthand in the Game Time qualifiers. We had not a single person, I think, on the desk picked Mirage to make it through. I was this close to picking them because I had heard about them. I'd been watching them for the last couple months, and I was like, all right, this is the test, though. This is where I want to see, can they actually get this done when the competition is there? And by God, they did it. They made it through. They got to the very end. They were able to make it into that grand finale, or into the playoffs of the Game Time circuit. And although they did not win the whole thing, to be able to make it to that type of level, despite being a team that most people had kind of basically written off, is going to show you why this team is a team to watch out for and why they are on the rise. So again, I don't want to just focus on Mirage because I do think that the Randoms and Team EXE deserve a lot of the spotlight here because they are both very strong teams. But my big thing right now is going to be sort of watching them, seeing what type of form they are in, and seeing if this really is sort of a, let's call it, quote, honeymoon phase, because that's what most people are actually suspecting it is right now. A lot of people seem to believe that this is just a sort of honeymoon phase for this team, that they are finding their flow, that they're doing really well, but they don't know how it's going to be long-term. I somewhat disagree with that rumor going around the behind the scenes, but we're going to have to find out. EXE, I think, is a little bit more of a team that has a better established future. I think that they are starting to show an upside and that there's a little bit more confidence in this being a long-term thing, but it's also because of the fact that they're doing really well in current stuff. EXE just won the last Nerd Street qualifier. It's $1,000 monthly that they do. Mirage had qualified for that as well, but EXE ended up taking the whole thing home. So again, both of those teams, though, they're really popping up in every single bubble event. So if you want to keep up to date with what's going on in the bubble scene, really just go follow these guys on Twitter, pay attention to everything that they are doing, and keep up with all that's going on. But that is about it today for the Rocket Recap. Thank you guys for coming through here. If you want some suggestions of some stuff to watch in the the next week. Like I said, TCS Esports League, they've got their league play over. It's on to playoffs for 6,000 Swedish francs, and that's a huge prize pool with some really incredible teams involved. So please go check that out. Go watch the Italian Serie A series or league, whatever you want to call it. It's the Italian Rocket Championship. It's season 6. They are continuing on with some really impressive teams, some really, really cool squads to watch, some professional players that you might even recognize. Shout out Dead Monster. But yeah, go watch that. Go watch TCH, go watch some of the qualifiers going on. Like I said, that Nerd Street one, they're doing it every single month. They've got tons of qualifiers going on for prize pools themselves. I think it's a couple $100. Really cool stuff to watch. And then also, go watch the ESAX Rocket Core stuff going on. They're doing $1,000 over 2 qualifiers. I got to cast the very first one of those qualifiers. It was an absolute blast, and the competition level that is coming through here is beyond anything else. So really, please go watch those leagues. But for right now, that is everything for the Rocket Recap. My name is Bass in the Past. Thank you guys so much for coming through here today. It means the world to see every single one of the supportive comments that I've had, and if you guys do have any more suggestions, please let me know down below. The amount of people that have had so many lovely things to say about this show so far and what they hope that this can do for the future of Rocket League has blown me away. But if you guys have your own suggestions, again, leave them down below. Make sure to like and subscribe and keep on coming back, because we do want to make this, or myself, I want to make this a either weekly or bi-weekly thing. So again, your input there is going to become invaluable beyond compare. So thank you guys so much for coming through here today. I really do appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will see you next time on the Rocket Recap. Have a good one.